ॐ वाङ् मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविराविर्मयेधि वेदस्य आणीस्थः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासि अनेनाधीतेनाहोरात्रान् सन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारमवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ Om. May my speech be accorded with the mind. May my mind be accorded with the speech. O self-effulgent one Brahman, reveal thyself to me. May you both, speech and mind, be the carriers of the highest truth to me. May not all that I have heard depart from me. May I be able to join day and night through this study. I shall utter what is verbally true. I shall utter what is mentally true. May that Brahman protect me. May that Brahman protect the teacher. May that protect me. May that protect the teacher. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto you all. Good morning. Give me one moment, because I think this microphone is echoing a little bit. This morning, I am going to speak on a very uncommon subject. Uncommon in the sense, theoretically, we are not very much aware of the subject, but practically into our day-to-day life, we experience it. The subject matter is alienation. It is basically a psychological subject and developed by the Western philosophers. And you will be surprised to know that the practical implementation was done by this theoretical subject, none but Karl Marx. So what does it mean by alienation? if you go to the dictionary, you can find the alienation means separatedness, estranged something, or disconnection. Now, how this concept, alienation, is applied in spiritual life, or to face the day-to-day life in a spiritual way. The most important point, it became philosophy to psychology in this way when the definition says the feeling of disconnection. It is not materialistic disconnection, it is a kind of feeling of disconnection. Feeling of disconnection of self from a group, from society, or from ourselves. A feeling of separatedness from the society, from a group, from friend, from family. So this is called alienation. Take a simple example. You must have come across some person. They say, I have enough of the society. I have enough of my friends. Now I want to withdraw for some days. I want to stay in isolation, calm and quietly. I am completely exhausted. Second example is this. I am trying to take my example. I am trying to compete in the market of lecturing, giving spiritual talks. But I find myself that somehow or other I am unable to reach the mark. I am unable to compete with others, those who are in the society giving some spiritual talks. After my hard try, when I find myself that, okay, probably it is not possible for me to beat the market, then what is my consolation? I said, no. You see, monk should meditate. Monk should go to the isolation. Their main purpose of life is spiritual. So, lecturing, okay, tidbit, but I shall concentrate on meditation. And it is very common, the meditation and this approach is in Sanskrit, in Indian philosophy, is called sattva, the inclination of sattva, rajas, tamas and sattva. These are the qualities. These are the traits of human being. So this is called sattva. The extreme inertness, the idleness, is called tamas. So inertia, full of inertia. And surprisingly, this tamas and sattva are very close. In sattva, you see people meditate, close their eyes, do not do any work, just meditate and spiritual life, pursuing spiritual life. In tamas also, I shall not do anything, And this is a kind of disguise that, no. What use of doing all kind of work, This is useless. This is not for monk. Monk should meditate, sit and meditate. They do not do any work. So this is another extreme of it, very close. It is very difficult to identify it is real sattva or tamas. It is sometimes confuse us, even the monk, that they confuse that, okay, what I am doing, is it okay, it is right? So this self-analysis is required. However, this withdrawing ourselves from the society. My purpose of giving this example is this: we sometimes withdraw from the society by giving some other justification when we are unable to compete, when we are unable to find our place in the society. So we withdraw ourselves. This is the example of alienation. So, alienation is a feeling of disconnectedness, feeling of separation, a state of feeling of estranged. This is called alienation. We just go in our self-made cocoon. It is a safety zone. We try to live in our safety zone. And as a result, we separate from the larger group. We separate from our family. We separate from our friends. We separate completely. So this is the example of alienation. Now, this alienation has been implemented in 3 categories. The first one is the self-alienation, or the spiritual alienation, I would call. Second one is the existential alienation. Existential alienation means we are alienated from our existence. Sometimes we cannot recognize our existence at all. Take the example, the great example. I went to India, a few months ago. One of my students, he was telling, Swami, he is working, he is a very high official post in government. At the same time, he is continuing his studies, and he was asking me that he has completed his PhD. He was then studying in postdoc, and recently he texted me he completed postdoc. So then what? What is next? So see, some discontentment is there. What is next? What I am doing? Everything to him is a kind of meaningless. What I am doing is meaningless. So this meaninglessness is another example of alienation. That what I am doing, what is the use of it? What I am doing? Sometimes we reflect, many things I did, but what is the use of it? It looks like everything is meaningless. Sometimes those who are extremely busy and a responsible person in their workplace or everywhere, sometimes they feel that what I am doing is useless. So this kind of meaninglessness, sometimes it comes. So it challenges our very existence. So this kind of problem is called existential problem. So this existence, so existential alienation, first is the spiritual alienation or the self-alienation, then the existential alienation, and the third one is psychological alienation. So psychologically, I am not, I don't want too much gathering, enough. But these people, those who are telling this, these people, they used to go to congregation, to party, to everywhere, most of the times. Recently, a lady came to meet me one-to-one, and she was telling, you see, I do not have any friend, I do not talk, I do not have any group, any congregation to go. I completely isolated from the society. Who made her isolation? Who made her isolated? She herself. So she found that group is not fit for her. So she herself isolated her. So this kind of thing is called alienation. So feeling, it is not actual, feeling of isolation, feeling of disconnectedness, a state of feeling extringent. So this is called alienation. And alienation, or mainly what I explained, the existential problem, this kind of meaninglessness, loneliness. Some people are extremely busy, but mentally they are extremely lonely. You can find some of the popular rock star or superstar, you can find them. They are extremely popular, they are extremely rich, but at the same time, they are extremely lonely. So this feeling of loneliness, this is the existential problem. Meaninglessness, loneliness is the existential problem. Everything is there, so they feel lonely. So let us bring one pet. Let us bring one puppy because we are lonely. So if loneliness is in mind, can you supplement it with a pet? It is impossible. So existential problem cannot be solved by any objective thing, because existential problem is subjective. For some days you can forget, but it will come again. The people, those who are mentally suffering, they try to forget their sufferings and they take different kind of drugs, etc., etc. So do you think that it is the permanent solution of that? Impossible. Exactly in the similar way, pet is not the solution of the existential problem. This is all different practical things of existential problem and obviously the alienation. So these are the alienations. What I am going to convey you this morning, that how can we solve? I am pretty sure, I am not exaggerating. I strongly believe that this existential problem or the alienation can be solved only by spirituality. It cannot be solved by any medicine. It cannot be solved by any psychiatric. It can be solved by spirituality. Why? Let us think why this alienation question is coming. If alienation means separatedness, feeling of separatedness. So if there is already some two separated things, can alienation come to that situation? If we know these things are separated, two things are there. When we know it is not two things, it is only one thing, but we feel it is separated, then only the question of alienation will arise. That it is one, but we feel it two. Here comes the spirituality in alienation. According to Indian philosophy, although this alienation subject is developed by the Western philosophers, Hegel actually propagated this idea, and it was at that point of time was the subject of philosophy. But it was Karl Marx who implemented that in the real ground, day-to-day practice. Take one example. A mountaineer trekking, can the mountaineer consider that is a huge work? They love it. They do not feel tired because it is connected with them. The same mountaineer, if you depute him to take care of somebody or guarding a house whole night, he will feel tired, It is impossible. It is tired, boring. So, the point is this: when we do work, the work becomes alienated from us. You are doing your work in the office, and most of the time we feel tired by working in our workplace. Why? If we the same work or more work if we do in our home, we do not feel tired. Why? It is because our work is alienated from us. In our home, our work is not alienated from us. So, our all work Then come another question, why do you work? Have you thought it? The simple question is to earn money. Is it true? Ultimate goal is earning money or the happiness? Try to think it. I am sure that the purpose of our work is not earning money. We don't care how much we have, what is that. Main thing is happiness. Yes, there are some people, they become happy by thinking their bank balance or their stocks, that this much is there. By thinking, but they cannot use that. They are happy by thinking. So happiness again. So we generally work for happiness. We spend money and we become happy. And happiness is connected with ourself. Everything is the expression of ourself. So happiness is inherent with us. Inborn happiness. Can we earn happiness? The happiness is the expression of our soul. When we were born, it was with us. It is inbuilt. So, this happiness is inherent in soul. Work will enable us to get this joy only when work becomes an expression of ourself. So when work becomes expression of ourself, we'll become happy. Creativity. We create something. We feel joy. Yes, we have created. See, we did it. Why creativity is a joy? We cook it and it is wonderful. We paint it, it is wonderful. I did the gardening. It is a creativity. So creativity is connected with ourself. It is some expression of ourself through work. So when work is the expression of ourself, that will give happiness. So the connectivity with our work is the expression of ourself. When work is not expression of ourself, then what will happen? We'll become alienated from the work. Here comes Karl Marx. Karl Marx said that the work what the people are doing in a conveyor belt is not their work. They are disconnected from the work. So that's why, because the benefit of this work is taken by their owner, not these people. So the people are disconnected from their work. The work is no more for them the expression of self. This is called self-alienation. So when our happiness and happiness hampered, so work, any work gives us happiness. Creativity gives us happiness. Why? And we do not feel it is a hard job. I feel gardening is a terrible hard task. It's a hard job. But those people, they like gardening, they do not feel that it is a hard job, because through work their self is expressing in the garden. They are not alienated, but I am alienated from this work. So this is self-alienation, spiritual alienation. Then comes the existential alienation. Means the psychological alienation, third, but the existential alienation. Existential alienation, I have already mentioned, the loneliness, meaninglessness. And actually, it has been given by different philosophers in the Western land. According to Friedrich Wessis, there are three types of alienation. How can we recognize this person is alienated? How can we recognize that? The Friedrich said that there are three signs of alienation. Different people actually, and these all are existential problems. They said, this Friedrich said, self-anesthesia, self-elimination, and self-idealization. These are the three types. Self-anesthesia. Self-anesthesia means, means we completely, insensible at that point of time. And what is that? The person may know a lot about others, but he knows little about himself. When I give the practical example, then you can understand. It is our characteristics, We know everything about others, about our friends, about our colleagues, but we do not think about ourselves. We don't know about ourselves. So this kind of people is called self-anesthesia, because they are completely ignorant about themselves. So this is called self-anesthesia, a kind of state of stupor, Next comes the self-elimination. This also I have mentioned, that some people is incapable of initiating any creative activity, nor can this kind of people wholeheartedly identify themselves with people or work. They cannot freely mix with others. They have some reservation within. In that way, they are alienated from others. This is called self-elimination. They eliminate themselves. And the third one is self-idealization. These people are purely idealistic people. And they think they are the best. They are following the most ideal thing. Everyone is bad. Everyone is not doing well. So, this is the three kinds of alienation. Then Melvin Seaman has pointed out 5 signs of alienation. One is powerlessness. Powerlessness is to think that one's own behavior cannot determine one's future. Means they are completely blind about planning and future. They live in present. Living in present is very good. But at the same time, we shall go to the future, visualize it, come back to the present. We shall go to the past, take the experience, and come back to the present. So dynamism must be there. Always staying in the present means we don't want to think about the future. Tomorrow will be tomorrow. These kind of people are also there. Then meaninglessness. When the individual is unclear as to what he ought to believe, when the individual's minimum standard of clarity in decision making are not met. So they cannot take decision. They cannot find the purpose of life. We cannot understand that because we have objective, we are running behind something. We have hope. So we are running behind something. This meaninglessness or something, this kind of thing comes when you are living in a very relaxed and, isolated time. You can find this meaninglessness. You want to go somewhere and stay there for some days. After 2-3 days you will find, okay, it is fine. I do not like that. We cannot. So these are all kinds of alienation. And alienation of what? Alienation, existential alienation. Then comes the psychological alienation. It is mainly the social alienation. And in psychological alienation, the unconscious from the conscious, or the ego. Ego is completely separated from us. So you can see few people, they are a little bit imbalanced kind of thing. What they are talking, they are talking, and what they are talking, sometimes you cannot find the meaning of those things. Sometimes he or she is expressing themselves, sometimes is another thing, means they are imbalanced kind of thing. These people are like this. They are completely dominated by ego. They are not grounded people. So these are because for ordinary people, what happened? Our conscious is completely alienated from our unconscious, right? We do not know what is happening in our unconscious. But we are guided by our unconscious. Take the example. You have a plan today. After this lecture session, you will do something. But when you will go out from this temple after this lecture session, you have planned it for 2-3 days that I shall go to the temple, I shall attend the lecture, and after that I shall do this thing. It is your plan for 2-3 days. And then what will happen? When you'll go out, step out from this temple, you change your mind and you will do some other things. But you had a plan for 2-3 days. Completely changed in 1 second. Why it happens? It happens, it is because our conscious level is completely disconnected with our unconscious level. And we are guided by our unconscious. From where these thoughts come, this thought rise from our unconscious. So we are dominated by our unconscious, but we do not have any control to our unconscious. So we are completely alienated. Our conscious level is completely alienated from our unconscious level. So this is psychological alienation. And this reflects to the society. Now I have given some sketch idea what is alienation. 3 types of alienation. Mainly there are self or spiritual alienation. There is economic alienation, what Karl Marx says, and there are psychological alienation. There are 3 types of main alienation. So, and then this spiritual alienation is divided into 3, I have mentioned. One is the self-alienation, which is spiritual alienation. One is existential alienation, and another is psychological alienation. So these are 3. So main division, alienation of 3 types: self-alienation, economic alienation, and I would say social alienation. Then from self-alienation or the spiritual alienation, it divided into 3. One is the higher spiritual alienation, second is existential alienation, and third is psychological alienation. So we do not talk about economic alienation, what Karl Marx spoke, huge. In Das Kapital you can find huge discussion about economic alienation, how these people, they are alienated from their product. What they are producing, they are completely alienated from that. So he implement in day-to-day life in this way. But his guru, Hegel, he did not say that. He actually found alienation. How this alienation question is coming? When we think, why we are discussing this alienation? Because we know self is one. We think that we are two. Basically it is one. In reality it is one. We think it is alienated from ego, this ego. Ego is alienated from the self. So as it were, we are 2 entities. This is alienation. So Hegel developed this alienation idea because Hegel believed that the higher entity, the absolute, exactly exactly similar to the Indian philosophers, that the higher entity, the absolute, is one. Only instead of Brahman, he told it higher mind, absolute mind. So starting from Plato, Aristotle, these people, they identified the higher absolute, but they were unable to connect it with an individual. So it became two entities always, and people could not find any connection to individual and the absolute, as we find in Christianity. In Christianity, God is sitting over the sky, and an individual cannot find the relation. Definitely it is through the Son of God. But what is the link? What is the route? They are unable to understand. So when people can understand that this is the route, through a Son of God, we can reach God, and in this way, then you can find that the scenario will be changed. As Hinduism speaks, that you cannot go directly to God, you have to select one avatara, then you can go through that. So it is the connecting link. However, this alienation, how can Vedanta solve this alienation problem? This is the question. How can it be alienated? So in Vedanta, the self is one. The Brahman and self is also one. And individual self and the absolute Brahman is also one. There is no any two. So three levels, I said, in especially the individual alienation or the ontological or the spiritual alienation, whatever you say. There are three divisions. The first alienation is from absolute to individual self. The second alienation is the existential alienation, from our own self to ego. And third alienation, ego to the society. These are three alienations. That is the psychological alienation. I mentioned about the ontological alienation or the self-alienation. These are three. The main alienations are three. One is, which is called ontological alienation, or self-alienation, or spiritual alienation. This is one. Economic alienation. And the third one is the social alienation, or whatever we see in the world, the social alienation, you can say. And then from the spiritual alienation, ontological alienation is coming three. One is the higher self-alienation, which is alienated from the absolute to individual self. Second alienation, individual self, ego. And third alienation, ego and the society. That is also the social alienation, you can say. So we have then an individual, according to Indian philosophy, has two entities, ego and self. That is one alienation. Because I talked about ego a lot. So that is one alienation. Then ego to the society, that is another alienation. And ourself and the absolute is another alienation. These are the three alienations we face. In the world, in the social alienation that we feel, that is the alienation from ego and the society. Why we are alienated from the society, I told in the beginning. That when we are unable to adjust with the people, we withdraw, we alienate. And why we are unable to adjust? Because of ego adjustment, because unable to manage our ego. Then why ego is functioning irregularly? Because our self is not connected with ego properly. And why our self is not connected with ego properly? Because we are not connected with the absolute properly. So the question of alienation is coming when we are thinking we are separate. Two things. If we consider we are one, then there will be no conflict. Why we fight with others? Because we think I am an entity and you are another entity. So we are completely different. Why mother is not fighting with her son? Sometimes, but not regularly, not common. It is because mother feels oneness, the identity. When we feel separate, two things, then fight will come. Then fear will come. Upanishad is saying fear comes from two. Fight comes from two. Vedanta says everything is oneness of existence. So there is no alienation at all. If I ask to a Vedantic student, do you think that your ego and self is functioning separately? What will be the answer? No. Ego is nothing but self. Only when we want to see our ego separately, then ego will function according to its own way. And that will be a problem. Only all our alienated problem can be solved by Vedantic view of oneness of existence. Fear, jealousy, hatred, anger, then all our separatedness, meaninglessness, loneliness, everything. is coming from there. So this is the new Vedanta, what Swamiji taught. You cannot find in Upanishad the solution of alienation. You cannot find any word alienation in Upanishad. But it was Swamiji who implemented the teachings of oneness of existence in different fields to solve our day-to-day problem. And this is called Neo-Vedanta. So Neo-Vedanta shows the way to overcome these three types of self-alienation and attain super-fulfillment by recovering one's true identity and by relating oneself authentically to one's fellow men. Neo-Vedanta is Vedanta interpreted by Swami Vivekananda in terms of modern humanity. The main features of Neo-Vedanta may be summed up as a fourfold harmony. Harmony of different schools of Vedanta, harmony of Vedanta and science, harmony of world religions, and harmony of the individual and society. Any question? Quick question. Yes, please.
Could you please repeat the last four harmonies?
Harmony of different schools of Vedanta. Harmony of religion and science. Harmony of world religions. And harmony of human being and society. Okay. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkham Apnuat Sarvastarotu Durgani Sarvo Bhadrani Pashyatu Sarva Sadbuddhim Apnotu Sarva Sarvatra Nandatu Durjana Sajjano Bhuyat Sajjana Shantim Apnuat Shantamuccheti Bandhebhyo Muktasjanyan Vimuchayet. May all be happy. May all enjoy good health. May all see happy events. May all be freed from miseries. May all be freed from dangers. May all realize what is good. May all be actuated by noble thoughts. May all rejoice everywhere. May the wicked become virtuous. May the virtuous attain tranquility. May the tranquil be free from bondages. May the freed make others free. May the Supreme Spirit, the presiding deity of all sacred activities, be satisfied. For he being pleased, the whole universe feels satisfied. Peace, peace, peace be unto you all. We have a few announcements. Next Sunday we will have a lecture at 11 o'clock. The subject is different derivatives of ego. Then on 4th February we will have Swami Vivekananda's birth anniversary celebration here. At 3 p.m. there will be a special worship here in this hall. And as usual, tea and coffee will be served from Saradananda Hall, which will be followed by Prasad luncheon. You all are welcome. Thank you.